Yo guys, it's JD again here, back for another video. So today will actually be my first attempt at a Dragon Ball Super manga chapter review. I debated on whether I should do this or not because I tend to try to do stuff that's more suited for my style, like, philosophy, lore, science, those kinds of theories and explanation kind of videos. Um, but I decided I would give it a try just to experiment, see if people want to hear what I have to say or if they like my angle and the way I think about stuff. Um, Again, I'm very like analytical about stuff. I'll look at the text, I'll look at the character expressions. I look at all of that and I read the chapters multiple times before I make definitive claims about things. But anyhow, with that out of the way, so this chapter, I'm mainly just going to talk about three things. I'm going to talk about where I think the story's going. I'm going to talk about Granola's display and his arsenal of techniques, of which some are strikingly similar to what we've already seen before. Um, and then I'm going to talk about my predictions for the next chapter. So three parts, and I'll try to keep this brief. Um, Anyway, so the chapter begins with them arriving on planet Serial. 18 days have passed, so I'm glad that Toyo did the time skip. Um, Vegeta already seems to understand that something's going on. Like the heaters weren't telling them everything, and this fits Vegeta's character because he tends to think about stuff. He doesn't trust people. I think Emish has said that before. Um, so yeah, so Vegeta, he's using his brain, and Goku is just wanting to fight a strong guy. So all within character archetypes. Um, One thing to know that heads at to what I'm going to talk about later is, Goku says, I don't sense any massive key signatures, right? Referencing Granolah, where he's hiding or where he's at, right? And Vegeta says maybe he's suppressing his power. We do that. Now, that may be the first obvious answer, but if Granolah, say, has similar techniques to Goku and Vegeta, some of those techniques that may be similar involve the employment of God Ki. So, what do we know about God Ki? You can't sense it, right? You can feel the pressure, but you can't like quantitatively say anything about the power because that's how it's always been explained. So keep that in mind. I just think that's Toyo, using his dialogue as a way of hinting at things that will come up in the chapter. But anyways, Goku and Vegeta they fly off, right? Maki decides to, um, you know, go meet Alec and Gas, right? Prepare for whatever plan they're gonna do. While Oil is going to observe the fight, record, analyze what's going on, right? So then based on the spoilers, we already know this. The heaters, Gas and Alec, they're about to arrive on planet Serial, and they're talking about memories that Gas had, from 40 years ago. Something happened, we don't know, but I think that's going to be saved for something later in the story. I'll give my thoughts on that later in the chapter. But anyways, they're flying off, right? Vegeta again observes that the planet appears to be very tame. There isn't any recent destruction, right? The sugar city, is intact and prospering, while there appears to be a ruins of a previous city, but this happened long ago. So Vegeta, is already aware that things are fishy. Then out of nowhere, they get shot at by Granolah, right? They immediately assume it's Granolah, and this is impressive because he's firing at characters who this is after Moro, this is after Broly and the Tournament of Power. These are characters whose base strength is far above anything you know thus seen this far. This is right after the Whis training, so this is an impressive feat, even if they're in their base state, right? And the accuracy is noted in the chapter. Right, Vegeta goes Super Saiyan, while Goku continues to employ the principles of Ultra Instinct while in base, which I like. Um, what's interesting though is they go into charge to find where these blasts are coming from, and they go to in the inner layers of the forest, and he's not there. Granola is not there, and then they start getting attacked from the air, which is an impressive display of speed, or so we think. Um, so, they're getting attacked from the air. You know, they're they go in to rush, but he's not in the air either. And then they start getting shot at from the ground, implying that either Granolah is just that fast or he teleported us somehow, right? And something that's interesting that a lot of people haven't picked up on in the chapter is that, you know, right before Goku gets hit, right? Because Goku gets hit from behind. He gets hit in his vital and it knocks him out where he needs a senzu bean. Um, right before Goku gets knocked out, though, he says again from the ground, and then Vegeta says, "You're saying he's moving faster than we can keep up with." And then Goku, who has a shocked expression, says, "But that's not." And then he gets hit. Now, the thing he was likely going to say is that's not possible. But I think at this point in the series, or in this chapter, I think Goku is realizing that there's something off about Granolah. Just being able to blitz them at this speed, that's not a normal feat, right? Like, Goku, who, a tactful and experienced martial artist, same with Vegeta, they've grown accustomed to fighting really strong and fast people. And the fact that they're surprised at how fast he's moving or whatever teleportation technique he's using, you know, again, there's this insinuation that it's something else, right? So anyways, Goku gets knocked out, Vegeta gives him a senzu bean. Goku's back, and they only have two senzu beans, which is kind of funny. I was hoping they would bring a bag of senzu beans, just in case. Um, but yeah, they use one of the two senzu beans, and Goku gets back up. They both go Super Saiyan. Um, and they're trying to sense for Granola's ki, and they can't. Goku thinks he has found Granolah, fires a ki blast, and then it zooms in on Granola's face, and then you look at his face, it's just like a blank stare. He's not. I mean, it's a little bit serious, but I mean, the way the panel is drawn, this is a technique he used. It's not just him, you know, just being really fast. The way the panel is drawn, the way it's choreographed, it's to insinuate that it's a technique. Then he appears right behind Goku and Vegeta, and Goku comments, "Instant teleportation." No, it's even faster than that. That literally implies that it's not instant teleportation, right? Because if it was, Goku's a master of this technique. He would know whether it was UI or instant transmission or not. And so Granolah in response says, "I have no name for the technique. It's just a small fraction of the power that elevated me to the strongest in the universe." Now, what that means, at least the way I'm interpreting it, is he doesn't even know what it is because he got it from the Wish, which implies that it's a separate arsenal of techniques from his cerulean abilities. So again, if this is something that he got from the Wish, and since Goku was presumably the strongest before the Wish was made, Goku and Vegeta, because maybe they're relative to one another, if the dragon knew that and the dragon granted him this wish, which he did, and he got techniques, which he already appears to have techniques, he can fly, he can sense ki, right? And then now this teleportation, which appears to be faster than instant transmission. To me, this is another piece of evidence to suggest that Granolah has UI. Again, I'll go over this a little bit in the later part of this chapter. So Granolah introduces himself, says some shit, right, and then Granolah flies down, and before he flies down, he puts his fingers out, right? He doesn't say Hakai, but he puts his fingers out, and there's an explosion of a pretty high magnitude, right? There's still dust, there's still debris, right? But again, right after it happens, Goku says, "Did you see that move, Vegeta? It was similar to destruction," right? Now, people will say, "But see, JD, that's proof. It's something similar to destruction. It's not Hakai." Well, the Spanish translation of this chapter, they said, "Si parece el Hakai," which in English translates to "looks like Hakai." Looks like Hakai is very different from saying something is similar to Hakai, right? Because the way I interpret that phrase, the Spanish equivalent, is like, "Oh, it looks like Hakai. It looks like Hakai," as like almost like a conclusion, right? Like, "Oh, I guess it's Hakai." Like that's how I'm interpreting that. Some people may interpret it another way. But again, that craters, we get a crater, there's some debris. Goku says those things, Vegeta says those things as well. And then Goku says, "Does that mean he can use our techniques?" Now people will say, "Oh, that's just Goku hypothesizing about what's going on." And Vegeta then says, "Ridiculous." But look at Vegeta's face. If you look at Vegeta's face, he looks pretty serious. He's sweating, right? And people say like, but oh, Vegeta said ridiculous, so it can't be. Well, again, this is a sudden display of power. This is happening, very fast, and they don't necessarily have time to process it. So Vegeta brushes it off by saying ridiculous. However, it may not be the case. It may be that that was Hakai, and Vegeta just doesn't want to believe it because he's trying to get Hakai. He's trying to, be the Hakai, you know, master, at least when it compared to anyone else, right? Other than Beerus. So, it wouldn't be an easy thing for him to admit. Be like, oh, this guy who happens to be the strongest is also happens to know Hakai, right? So that's how I'm interpreting that. And then Vegeta's like, I came here to prove my superiority over you, and that's still fitting Vegeta's character archetype. He wants to be better than Goku, but it just so happens that him doing that involves him taking the hero seat from time to time. Anyways, Goku fights Granolah, he goes God, and the fight and the way it's drawn is it's pretty good. It's pretty good. There's some homages to the Merge Zamasu fight in terms of the way it's drawn, but it's pretty fun. It looks really good. I like the way Granolah fights. I like the martial art style he's using. He's using, you know, pressure points and knowledge of the flow of the blood, right? I mean, this is pretty cool stuff. It reminds me of Chinese, kung fu movies. But what's interesting is Granolah, he gets a hit on Goku, and Goku just thinks it's a light blow, but it ends up taking him down again. So based off the spoilers that Raikudo said, again, it was Goku who gets knocked out twice, or at least Goku in his second bout is knocked out, but is still conscious enough to fight again. And then we find out in the chapter that you can apply the principles of UI to Super Saiyan transformations, which I didn't want to see because again, it just insinuates that they're just gonna. It's not suggesting that they're stacking the forms. It's just that Goku is applying the principle, the state of mind of UI to his Super Saiyan transformations. So it's not like, he's as strong as he was, say, using the silver hair. He's just applying the dodge and, the reaction time of UI to his other forms to enhance their effect, their effectiveness, which I like. This is no different than when, Goku would switch between red, Super Saiyan God, and then Super Saiyan Blue when he was fighting Zamasu and Goku Black. It's a similar concept, right? You want to increase your power or speed or whatnot, right? And so he's using Ultra Instinct as a bridge to connect those two things. So it's a similar tone, right? And so Granola, he does a lot of Ki blasts. Goku decides to use the principles of UI, right? He's dodging. But again, Goku can only hold it for a limited amount of time, which implies that his training with Whis wasn't complete. Some people have a problem with this, but again, you know, Toyotaru, I think, wrote himself into a corner by giving Goku, the complete mastery of UI where he can tap into it at will, and now he's able to apply it to his other forms. I think that was a little bit too soon. So Toyotaru writes it that, it's just Goku's nature to just turn turn off turn off or on the principles of UI. Again, Goku wants to have a long drawn out fight, and using UI all the time would just quickly beat the opponent that he's facing. So it actually makes sense that he wouldn't constantly be using it because Goku, he just wants to have fun, right? And UI is like sort of like just taking the passenger seat essentially. So it kind of makes sense why he would turn it off and on. But I like Granola's explanation of how he's fighting. And he tells Goku, "Your reaction time is incredibly fast. I can tell your body moves on its own before your brain even processes incoming attacks." So Granola is even aware that whatever Goku's using, it's very different. Whether that suggests Granola has UI because that's how he would know it, I don't know. But again, there's so many nuggets of evidence that have been given to us since chapter 69, since the wish was made and, again, now I'm just paying attention to the dialogue to see if there's any more. But yeah, we find out Granola's right eye is the sharpest in the universe, which means that it's sharper than Jocko. And the way Granola fights is actually it's similar to the way Hit fights with pressure points and you know having like this delayed explosion in terms of the damage that's done. So I like that. But Vegeta, he's just taking the spectator seat and he starts to notice something similar, something is familiar, based off what he knows. And, he's looking around the ruined remains of the Cerulean city, and, you know, I think he puts two and two and realizes that not only is he being set up, him and Vegeta, but I think he knows what happened to the Ceruleans, maybe why they were wiped out. Because that's something we don't know. We don't know why the Ceruleans were wiped out. Was it because they had a legend that was similar to the Super Saiyan legend? Maybe Frieza was scared. Maybe it has something to do with the Dragon Balls on planet Cereal. Only time will tell, and I think we'll find that out very soon. So yeah, Goku goes Super Saiyan Blue, right? Granolah powers up, and we find out Granolah actually has an orange aura. It's like an orange red aura, like Oro and like Jiren. So that's interesting. And you know, uh, one thing you have to realize is this fight, Granolah hasn't been at all damaged. I mean, he's effortlessly taking out, Goku's and Vegeta, or at least Goku. He's using Goku as a punching bag. And I mean, Granolah is going in for the kill. I mean, had it not been for Goku's body being so durable as a result of his training with UI, Goku would probably be dead. So these are impressive feats, even though Goku hasn't gone into the silver hair form. So they fight in blue, things appear even, and then Vegeta, you know, finds a footprint of a Azaru, and the chapter ends. So I think next chapter is going to be a flashback. We're going to see maybe more of what happened with Bardock and the other Saiyans who invaded Planet Cereal. We may find out something special about Granolah. May see stuff with the heaters and what they're doing, whether they're going to get the Dragon Balls and make a wish off world, which is something we may have not seen before. But yeah, this chapter for me, what's more interesting is that based off what Granola's doing, displays of feats, it definitely suggests that Granolah probably has UI and Hakai, and it's because if Goku was the strongest prior to the wish, it should make sense that he got those techniques because if you make the wish to be quote unquote the greatest, well, greatest can be translated as being I'm better at something than someone else, right? So if Goku prior to the wish being made was learning how to use UI and base, then him making the wish at that time gave him the iteration of UI while in base, and then that would also imply that he could transform into the silver hair form like Goku can currently. And we may see that either next chapter or in chapter 74. We'll see. But I'm very confident now, like I'm 80% sure Granolah has UI and Hakai. And a lot of people don't like that. I personally don't like it because I think it's going to overshadow what Granolah can do, right? Because Moro was an interesting character throughout the Moro arc because of his magic, because of the lore behind him, and because of how tactical he was. And then the moment 7-3 came into the story, and the moment Moro decided to make a backup of his powers, he just became boring, right? When he became Moro 7-3, he was boring. He was a clone of Hit. He was a clone of Cell in terms of his aesthetics, and everything he did was just using other people's abilities, right? And then, when Goku got UI, Moro wasn't even a challenge with those abilities, so he had to use or he had to get something similar to UI in order to make the fight interesting. And to me, this is no different than what happened in the Moro arc, right? Granolah to be relevant, Granolah to be a challenge for Goku and Vegeta, he had to use the Dragon Balls, and the Dragon Balls are essentially, in terms of a literary device, they're just a Deus Ex Machina, right? They give you power, they do things for the story that is essentially cheating, right? It's a way to, you know, make something plot contrived. And 7-3's abilities, the Dragon Balls, Super Dragon Balls, all these things are just Deus Ex Machinas. They give a protagonist or they give the antagonist an edge, if you will, in terms of the story, in terms of the bouncing ball between what goes on in the narrative. And so, many people may not like this. Many people say this is, a stupid idea, JD. There's no way Granolah got UI and Akai. But again, I ask you, if you look actually at the teleportation that Granolah did, it's very similar to the same instance of when Miras got behind Goku and Vegeta in the Moro arc. The way he teleported very quickly, people say, "Oh, but JD, that's just the after image," and then some people think it's the instant transmission. Again, in Goku's own words, he says that's instant transmission, and then he says no because it's too fast for it to be instant transmission. right? Which implies to me that it's not instant transmission. And then Granolah, in response to that, says, "Oh, I have no name for this technique. It's just something that I got as a result of the wish," right? Granolah is not aware of these things. And then people will say, "Oh, but JD, Granolah, he doesn't have the mindset for these techniques." That's true. He doesn't. He doesn't know what he's even doing it either. But guess what? Oro didn't know what he was doing either. He didn't understand Ultra Instinct. He didn't even believe it was a thing, right? And he still got it and he still used it, if not temporarily. So again, this is no different than the 7-3 abilities, right? In terms of the logic, right? The wish logic, in my opinion, is no different than having a character who can copy other abilities. It's a Deus Ex Machina, right? You're acquiring power unnaturally. And so again, I think we're going to find out very soon whether that's the case. I liked the chapter. The art was very good. The dialogue was a little interesting, right? I like Granola's character. He's definitely not a crybaby. I was afraid he was going to be a whiny brat, and he's not. He's really going in for the kill. He's living up to his character archetype, which is like a sniper mercenary, right? He's using guerrilla warfare tactics. I like this. I really do. Um, do I like the direction they're going? If it turns out Granolah has UI and Hakai, I don't like it. I wish he would keep something, or have something more interesting. But I really think this is this fits in line with Toritaru's past, um, you know, attempts at foreshadowing. This is no different than the Zeno button. This is no different than the moral mirror's hand theory. To me, that's how it's similar. But again, many people think it's not. But again, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. And depending on the feedback of this video, I may make more. But thank you again for watching. Bye, guys.